What's up, guys? Husky Shane here, back again. So we're still working on this Yeti Tundra blow-through, and this is going to be video 3 in our video series, and we're going to be doing a couple of different things today. So if you watch the 2 previous videos, what I did was I showed you guys how I built the port into the cab from the bed, and I showed you guys how I built the floor of the box so that we can build from that, into the truck bed. If you haven't watched those videos, go back and watch them. It's basically just part 1 and part 2. And after I uploaded those, I realized that maybe the floor should have been part 1 and the port should have been part 2. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I was kind of doing those 2 steps simultaneously. And so I just had a bunch of footage that I had to cut and make one video and one another video. Otherwise, it would have been like a 2-hour-long video. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. You guys can see the process that I used. So if those 2 videos are out of order, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, with that being said, in today's video, we're going to be building the sidewalls of the box, right, to give it a little bit of a 3D shape. And we're going to be working on the baffle. So this thing is going to be home to 3 18s and a big 10-inch aeroport. So we're going to be building that into the box, right? Like 2 sidewalls and a great big baffle to hold all of that. So anyway, guys, stay tuned. I think you're going to like this.
Cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient.
Okay, getting the side pieces on here. You can see these are 2 layers thick of 3/4. One thing I did do was I took my Flex Seal and I painted it right there. Right, you can see it on my other one. Right, like that. Just because it's going to be hard to get in there with a roller brush right next to that fender well. Right, all this stuff I can paint. But that I can't really once it's in. So I went ahead and painted it before I installed it. And basically what I did was I took one piece, put it in with Craig jig holes all the way up. And then I took the second piece with the grid drawn on it and just mounted it to the first piece with a bunch of wood glue and all that stuff, right? So that's how we did that. 2 layers seems pretty good. Anyway, now what we got to do left is this side. to get all this on video because my camera turned off because it got too hot. Because I'm in Arizona and it is 107 degrees out here right now. But anyway, with that being said, get that kind of wiped off. I think we're done for the day. It's too hot out here. As you can see, all I did, I ran a little bead of construction adhesive, that PL stuff, just to fill the gap a little better. Then I covered the whole backside of that wood with wood glue, stuck it up here, clamped it in place, and then I just followed my grid, right? I started here and just worked my way that way. Now we got 2 layers on this side, 2 layers on that side, great big port right in the middle. All right, well, there you have it, right? We have a 3D shape now. We got the 2 side walls built, and I basically just chose a height that would allow me to still have a bed that I could store some stuff on the top of the box. It's going to be tight in there, but anyway, we got the side walls built. Now it's time to move on to the baffle. Now, a lot of thinking and pre-planning went into this because 318s plus a 10-inch arrow port, that's like 75 inches long. Well, my bed cannot accommodate that if I just built like a straight, you know, like a straight line. Plus, my blow-through hole is too big to be able to do that. And I already had a hole there in the beginning, right? Like, to have a wall where it's just like a straight, you know, square, then you'd have to have the hole off to one side. Well, that's already not possible because there was already a hole there that was right in the middle. So we're going to have to go at an angle. But then you still have to be mindful of your airspace and your magnet depth and all these things that you have to take into account before you just throw a baffle in there, right? So a lot of planning did go into this, a lot of trial and error, a lot of pen and paper, where I was just doing trig, right? Like anybody that says, well, you're never going to use this as an adult, talking about math, right? Well, if you want to build subwoofer boxes, you definitely are going to use it. And so we finally figured out what we're going to do. This is going to be very close to a 1-to-1. The rear chamber is going to be a little bit smaller than the front chamber. The rear chamber is going to be about 15 or 16 cubes, something like that. And then the front chamber is going to be somewhere in the 20, something like that. I don't know right off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my notes to tell you exactly. And the back chamber is going to have a 10-inch arrow port tuned mega low. We're talking like 20, 19, 18, 17 hertz, something like that, where what's really going to dictate that is how much room I have to extend that port. And then the front's going to be tuned pretty high. I'm just basically going to have it open. That way I can shrink it if I need to. Because the way it sits, it's going to be tuned really high, like 50, something like that. Anyway, so here's the process of me building that baffle. So you can see that black line right there. That's where the mounting wall for the subs is going to be, right? So when you look in that hole from behind my seat, you're going to see sub magnets this way, 3 of them. And then this is another wall. That's not going to have anything attached to it. And then I'm going to use an arrow port, a circular one like that. Like that thing right there, a piece of round PVC. And so that's going to mount here, and the tube is going to go this way and end about right here. So this will be like a ported box, and it's firing into this. All right, guys, so we're working on the baffle piece now. right? Everything's gonna be at an angle like that. And I just thought the easiest thing was gonna be to go from this corner to that corner, basically cut it in half. And I was lucky because this angle here is about 32 or 33 degrees, meaning this angle going to be on this side because I'm going to do my port right here where this line is. So we basically have a 33 and a 57 angle, congruent angles here. Well, my skill saw, let's see if I can show you guys. Let's see, unlock that. There we go. All right, see, my skill saw goes to 57. All right, so it'll cut, the biggest angles it'll cut are the ones that I need. So you can see here, right? I just took my two baffle pieces and clamped them together and then cut it up there at 57 degrees. And it fits pretty much perfectly. Right, and you guys can see I drew a line. Let me back this up a little bit. Yeah, I drew a line from that corner to that corner, and then my port piece is gonna go here. Right, so then if we just move this back into place, there we go. All right, that's butted up in there. Let's see, where's my marker? All right, so then I know, let's see, back this up. Okay, you can see my port piece is gonna come to right here. You can see where that line comes in. So then let's see right there like that. Okay, so then if I just cut this right there, then that'll be the baffle piece with the proper length. All right, so you can see now I got this one cut. This one I cut at 33 degrees. So that one I cut at 57. That one I cut at 33. And as you can see, right, these aren't brought together or anything, but once this is all one piece, you can see now how that's going to be straight. And then when I bring this piece this way, right, the part that holds the arrow port is going to be like this, right, too thick, like that, right? Okay, so let me show you guys a little trick. If you're, and I get confused too, like, you know, when I draw it out on paper, that's 32 degrees, meaning from 90, this one is, excuse me, 33, 57. Anyway, excuse me. But then when you cut it, you have to use like the opposite angle. I think it's called congruent angles, but anyway, I'll look that up and make sure that's correct. But a good way to double check yourself, like, dang, am I about to make the right cut or not? Is if you take your saw, right, it's unplugged, right, safety first. Make sure that the cut you're about to make is the correct one. Right, so let's see here. So you're gonna be cutting on this at this angle, right? Like, come on, move that out of the way. All right, so you're gonna be cutting on this, on that angle, the angle of that line. And then, does that line up? No. Right, well, there we go. See? You know you've got the right angle because if you line, well, there we go. There it is. Right? See? Since I got this grid, I can visualize it. I've got this, you know, this piece here, lined up with where my baffle is going to go, and then my blade should be straight, or should make perpendicular, right? Like with one of these lines here, right? Because that's where we want this to be. We want it to be perpendicular to this. So if you take your blade, set it at the angle that you think you need, and then just look at it. All right, if I cut my wood like this, then I know that that's gonna fit just like that. It's a way that you can just double check and make sure that you're about to make the proper cut and not ruin a piece of wood. I did the same thing out there. I just checked it, you know, against that 57 degrees that I was about to cut it. So anyway, that's just a good way to keep yourself honest and make sure that you're not about to make a mistake. So working on this baffle again this morning. We got the two baffle pieces here. I am going to reinforce this some more, but these are going to be just kind of our base pieces. And I ordered these 18-inch subwoofer rings. They've got a flush mount, and they're just big enough to fit those sundown subs. So not only am I going to use this to create my circle template to cut the holes in this baffle, but I'm also just going to use them. I'm going to mount my sub. I'm going to, you know, attach these to the baffle and then mount my subs in there. Now, part of the issue with doing this is really spaces the subs out, right? Like these are like 20.5 inches outside to outside. So that's 60, almost 62 inches all the way down. Well, my baffle is only 65, 66 inches or something. I have to get a tape measure on it to measure it exactly, but it basically takes up the whole baffle, which then means this sub, when it's reverse mounted, the magnet is like sticking into the port, which I guess is okay, but I don't really like that. So I want to stack the subs as close this way as possible, right? Those subs only have like an 18.5 inch, I believe, outer diameter. Yeah, there you go. So I should be able to save about 3 or 4 inches right here and move the subs this way if I don't use these rings. So what I did was I cut them, right? This mounting ring is like 19 inches, I believe, is what the spec said. So this is almost the exact size of the outside of that sub. So as you can see, whoops, I'm going to do each ring like this. I have 3 of them. We're going to cut off the sides on each side and then one on the bottom, but not on the top. That way, not only can I get the rings closer to each other, as close to each other as possible, but then I can also stagger them like this, right? One kind of down, one kind of up, one kind of down. And then I can cram them even closer together because this baffle is almost 22 inches tall. So we don't have to line them up all the way like this. We're gonna kind of go like that, right? Just to squish them as much as possible and save as much space as possible. See, like this is gonna sit right on the bottom of the box. Then for the middle one, I'm just gonna flip it, and that one is gonna mount right to the top of the box, right, like that, and so on. So then they're gonna be kind of like this on that baffle, like that. And then I should be able to gain 3 or 4 inches on this side. That way my sub isn't just like sticking right into the port. It'll be pulled out a little bit. So how did I know how to cut those square? Well, let me let this plane pass. There's a little airport near here. Anyway, so how do you make square cuts on a circle? Well, maybe there's a better way to do it, but this is how I'm doing it. I know that the outside ring here is 19 inches. So I just drew myself a 19 by 19 square. Then I place this. Okay, so you can see that looks about right. Then I use a straight edge to just kind of eyeball it, right? I want my cut to be right at the outer edge there. So like that, right? I mean, close enough. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. For those of you out there that are like woodworkers for like a profession or something, I'm sure there's a better way to do this, and I'm sure you could tell me, but like I said, this is how I'm doing it. Just draw a line there. Now I've got a cut line that I know is relatively square, especially if I do the same thing on this side and that side, versus like one of my cuts accidentally being up here. You know, this at least lets me stay as square as I'm going to be able to get it without using like a table saw or something. All right, so you guys get the idea, right? Like this one's gonna sit down, this one's gonna sit up like that, right? Then I can squish these together even a little bit more, right? And then that one's gonna sit down again like that. So this one's on the bottom, this one's on the top, this one is on the bottom, right? So these are gonna squish together about like that, okay? So now I've saved myself a good, now I got like 8 inches right here, whereas before I made these cuts, I only had like 2, right? So then the sub is sitting at an angle like into the port. Like, you don't want that. So now this allows me to move them that way as far as they'll go, right? The subs are going to be basically touching each other like right here, right? Because this is 19 inches rings. These rings are 19 inches and the sub diameter is 18.5. So there's only going to be about a ½ inch between the subs versus like a whole inch if I would have kept those rings intact. And then that's how that's going to look, like that, right? You're going to see sub booties coming out this way. Okay, so this is how this is going to be laid out, right? Like that's the cab of the truck, that's the back of the truck, that's the top. And like I said, like you can see, we got one kind of at the bottom, one at the top, one at the bottom. I know I need this much room here to make up for this angle that's going to be here, this other piece, right? So that I'm not running into the connecting piece right here. Anyway, I need this much gap. I can't just shove this all the way over, otherwise I'm gonna be cutting into the port piece. So that's how that's gonna be arranged. And then once we just cut these holes out, right, stack this on top of it, boom. Now we're gonna have our baffle piece, and look at all this room we saved. We're not up like right up into the port anymore, so that's good. Getting ready to put this baffle piece in. Right, I got my Craig jig holes set. Got some on this underside too to hold it up close to the front wall. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get a ton of video of me doing this because it is really tight in there and you probably are just going to see me moving around. I'll try to get some footage of it, but it might not be very good footage. I don't know. We'll see what we can get. So here's just a little test fitment, guys. Let me just kind of show you where we're at. We got this front wall put in place. Now I'm just test fitting this baffle, right? That's not screwed down or anything. And this port piece, everything fits pretty good. So we're just gonna have to get some glue and start screwing all this into place. It's always good to test fit everything before you just start landing screws, because then you don't really, if you just start like putting this down, you're gonna end up, maybe it's too short or something and you didn't realize it. And if you glue it all into place and then realize that, well, kind of too late now, right? Oh, one thing I did do with the baffle piece, I had one of these I had a spare piece that was 22¼ inches tall, which is how tall this whole box is. And so I just used it to give myself a little bit of extra, you know, thickness on this baffle. It wasn't quite as long as the baffle, so I just cut it, right? And then just kind of chamfered the edges. Gives the box a little nice look to it, you know, and gives the baffle 5 layers thick in some places. So just giving it a little extra beef and then a little different look, you know, like a little layered look. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at now. When you look in through these windows, that's what you're gonna see. 3 big sundown subs, and then that arrow port's gonna go right there like that. Well, there you have it, guys. We got a baffle in there now. So this thing is starting to look like a subwoofer box now, right? We got the side walls. You can see we do have a back wall and that port piece, but we'll address that in our next video. Like I said, I was kind of doing all these steps together, right? Like I was putting the side walls in the truck and I had the baffle going over here and I had this going over there. So some of the steps might not seem like they're quite in order from start to finish, but I'm trying to make it as close to that as possible. But anyway, guys, I think this baffle piece came out great. It looks really cool with the kind of 3-dimensional rings on it. We're going to kind of have a, you know, a stagger where they're kind of up and down and up, and it's going to look cool. I think it came out great. So I appreciate you guys watching. Please like my videos, give me a thumbs up, comment on this video if you feel like you want to, share it with your car audio friends, subscribe to my channel. I'd really like that. Anyway, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching.
Just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. That's how you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top?